Donald Trump had always been a man of bold words and decisive actions. Whether in the world of business, politics, or public speaking, he never shied away from expressing his beliefs. His speeches often carried strong messages about faith, patriotism, and the values he believed shaped America. On this particular day, standing before a massive crowd, he spoke with an intensity that commanded attention. With the wind brushing against his suit and thousands of eyes locked onto him, he raised his voice and declared something that would soon spark a firestorm across the internet. He spoke about Jesus Christ, about the role of faith in guiding America through turbulent times, and about the need to hold on to religious principles despite the growing wave of secularism in modern society. He emphasized how faith had been the foundation of his success, how belief in a higher power had given him the strength to face relentless attacks from the media, political adversaries, and even former allies. The audience responded with thunderous applause, their cheers echoing through the air. Cameras captured every moment, and within minutes, his words began circulating across social media. The message was clear. Trump was standing firm in his faith, presenting himself not just as a political leader, but as a man who believed in the power of divine intervention. However, not everyone received this speech with admiration. While many of his supporters rallied behind his words, praising his courage to speak openly about religion in an era where such discussions often invited controversy, there were others who saw it differently. One of the most unexpected voices to rise in response was that of Lil Nas X, a musician known for his unapologetic style and rebellious presence in the entertainment industry. He had built his career by breaking boundaries, challenging norms, and often mocking traditional values. His music videos, performances, and social media posts frequently carried messages that clashed with conservative ideals. He thrived in controversy, and this was an opportunity he would not let pass. Without hesitation, he took to social media and delivered a response that immediately captured the attention of millions. His words dripped with sarcasm, questioning Trump's sincerity and ridiculing his statements. He painted Trump as a man desperate for attention, using religion as a tool to win back public favor. His followers erupted in laughter, sharing memes and comments that fueled the flames of the brewing debate. The post went viral within minutes, spreading like wildfire across platforms. Headlines appeared on major news sites, and commentators from both political and entertainment spheres weighed in on the unexpected clash. For a moment, it seemed as though Lil Nas X had successfully turned Trump's speech into a spectacle of mockery. Social media was flooded with discussions, arguments, and debates. Some defended Trump, arguing that his words carried genuine meaning and reflected the beliefs of millions of Americans. Others sided with Lil Nas X, seeing Trump's speech as nothing more than a strategic move to regain lost support. The battle of narratives was in full force, and Trump, a man who had faced countless public attacks throughout his career, found himself once again at the center of controversy. But what happened next would stun everyone. Something unexpected was about to unfold, something that no one saw coming. If you believe in leadership, power, and second chances, this is the place for you. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to never miss an inspiring Trump story. Donald Trump had never been a man to shy away from controversy, nor had he ever hesitated to speak his mind. Throughout his career, both in business and politics, he had built a reputation as someone who defied expectations, challenged norms, and embraced battles that others would have avoided. His words carried weight, and whether one loved or hated him, no one could ignore him. For years, he had made it clear that faith played a central role in his life and in the vision he had for America. He often spoke about the power of prayer, the importance of religious freedom, and the role of Christianity in shaping the country's moral foundation. His speeches at rallies, interviews with media outlets, and posts on social media were filled with references to God, divine intervention, and the idea that America was, at its core, a nation guided by faith. This particular moment, however, was different. It was not just another passing mention of Christianity or a vague statement about values. It was a direct and powerful declaration, one that he knew would draw both immense support and relentless criticism. The stage was set at a large gathering, an event filled with thousands of people who had come to hear him speak. He had already addressed issues of policy, economy, and national security, but then, as he often did, he shifted the conversation toward something deeper, something he believed transcended politics. He spoke of Jesus Christ, not as a distant religious figure, but as a guiding force in his life, a source of strength in his most difficult battles. He reflected on the moments when he had been under siege, politically and personally, when the weight of opposition had seemed insurmountable. He described how, in those moments, faith had been his anchor, how prayer had given him clarity when the world was against him. He spoke of the founding fathers, of the deep Christian roots of the nation, and of the need to protect those values in an era where they were under constant attack. He warned that forces were working tirelessly to erase the presence of faith from public life, to silence those who believed, and to create a society where moral relativism replaced the principles that had once defined the nation. The audience erupted in applause. Many in the crowd had long admired his willingness to speak so openly about religion, to challenge the growing secularism that many felt was eroding the foundation of the country. They saw him as a defender of their beliefs, someone who was unafraid to invoke the name of Jesus in a political landscape where others avoided it for fear of backlash. But while thousands cheered, there were just as many who recoiled at his words. His critics wasted no time in responding. Within minutes, headlines appeared dissecting his speech. Commentators on television debated whether his words were genuine or a calculated political move. Social media became a battleground, with supporters hailing him as a courageous leader standing for truth, while detractors dismissed his statements as nothing more than pandering to religious conservatives. Memes flooded the internet, mocking his declaration. Celebrities and influencers weighed in, many ridiculing him and accusing him of using religion as a tool for political gain. Among those voices, one stood out sharply. A musician known for his defiance of traditional values, for his bold and provocative approach to entertainment, and for his willingness to challenge cultural norms, took it upon himself to turn Trump's speech into something entirely different. He saw an opportunity to mock, to provoke, and to use his influence to shape the narrative. What followed was an escalation that neither side had fully anticipated, a clash between two figures from entirely different worlds. And while the initial response seemed to place Trump at the center of yet another storm of ridicule, what would happen next would leave even his harshest critics stunned. Lil Nas X had built his career on defiance. From the moment he burst onto the music scene, he had been more than just an artist. He had been a cultural disruptor, someone who thrived on controversy, who understood the power of provocation, and who wielded social media like a weapon. He had rewritten the rules of success, transforming viral moments into mainstream dominance, using humor, irony, and bold statements to challenge societal norms. His rise was fueled by an ability to take control of narratives, to push boundaries that many before him had hesitated to cross. Whether through his music videos, his performances, or his online presence, he had mastered the art of making headlines. For him, no topic was off limits, no target too untouchable. He had clashed with religious groups, toyed with symbols of faith, and turned backlash into fuel for his growing influence. He had a particular talent for taking serious discussions and flipping them into spectacles of entertainment, turning outrage into a marketing strategy that kept him at the center of attention. He had built an audience that celebrated his rebellious nature, an audience that expected him to challenge authority, to mock tradition, and to embrace controversy rather than avoid it. So when he saw Trump's declaration about Jesus, He saw an opportunity that was too perfect to ignore. The response was immediate. He took to social media, where his words had the power to spread within seconds. His post was carefully crafted, laced with sarcasm and dripping with irony. He questioned Trump's sincerity, mocked the idea of the former president presenting himself as a man of deep faith, and ridiculed the speech as nothing more than an attempt to manipulate his supporters. The language was sharp, the tone was unmistakable. It was not a simple disagreement or a mild critique. It was an open challenge, a direct provocation designed to stir reaction, to ignite a storm of debate and outrage. The impact was instant. The post exploded across platforms, shared and commented on by millions. Supporters of Lil Nas X celebrated his response, laughing at the way he had managed to turn Trump's words into an object of mockery. They flooded the comment sections, amplifying the message, turning his post into a viral sensation. Memes surfaced. Within minutes, each one more exaggerated than the last, twisting Trump's speech into something entirely different. But his response did not stop at a single post. He escalated. He continued to engage, adding layers to the conversation, playing into the reactions, drawing more people into the spectacle. He knew exactly how to keep the controversy alive, how to maintain control over the narrative. He hinted at releasing a song inspired by the situation, suggested merchandise mocking the moment, and entertained the idea of turning it into a full-scale production. Every move was calculated, every step designed to keep the spotlight on him. Meanwhile, the media took hold of the story. Headlines multiplied, dissecting the exchange, framing it as a battle between two cultural forces on opposite ends of the spectrum. Talk shows debated the significance, political analysts weighed in, entertainment reporters covered it as though it were a major event. Some saw Lil Nas X's response as a necessary challenge to hypocrisy, others saw it as disrespectful mockery, but one thing was certain, no one could ignore it. For Trump, this was not unfamiliar territory. He had faced public attacks before, had been the subject of relentless scrutiny, had been ridiculed by comedians, musicians, and public figures alike. But this time, the narrative was shifting rapidly. The momentum seemed to be against him, and the world was watching to see how he would respond. Many believed this was a moment of humiliation, a moment where Trump had been outmaneuvered, where he had become the subject of a joke too big to escape. What they did not realize was that the story was far from over. Something unexpected was about to happen, something that no one, not even Lil Nas X himself, could have predicted. The reaction was immediate, explosive, and deeply divided. The moment Lil Nas X's response hit the internet, the battle lines were drawn. On one side were Trump's loyal supporters, the millions who had stood by him through every controversy, who believed in his vision, who saw him not just as a political leader, but as a symbol of resilience against a world they felt was turning against their values. On the other side were those who embraced the irreverence of Lil Nas X, who saw him as a modern-day provocateur, an artist unafraid to challenge authority, to push against the establishment, to dismantle tradition with humor and defiance. Trump's supporters flooded social media with outrage. They saw the response from Lil Nas X as not just an attack on Trump, but an attack on faith itself. To them, this was yet another example of how their beliefs were constantly under siege, how every public expression of Christianity was met with mockery and disrespect. They argued that Trump had spoken sincerely, that his words had come from a place of conviction, and that his speech had resonated with millions who felt their faith was being pushed out of public life. They shared messages of support, posted scriptures, and called for a stand against what they viewed as the increasing hostility toward Christianity in mainstream culture. Many of them saw this as a test of resolve. They rallied behind Trump, emphasizing that this was exactly why they had supported him in the first place, because he was willing to speak openly about religion in a way that so many politicians refused to do. They pointed out how no other major political figure had been willing to invoke Jesus Christ with such a confidence, how no one else had dared to stand so firmly in the face of opposition. To them, Trump was once again proving why he was different, why he was the leader they trusted. At the same time, Lil Nas X's supporters celebrated. They saw his response as another brilliant act of defiance, a moment of cultural rebellion against a figure they viewed as outdated, hypocritical, and manipulative. They praised his wit, his sharpness, the way he had turned Trump's own words against him with a single social media post. They flooded comment sections with jokes, memes, and exaggerated reactions, amplifying the narrative that Trump had been humiliated, that his speech had backfired spectacularly. The internet became a battlefield of arguments, debates, and viral content. News outlets quickly picked up the controversy, with headlines sensationalizing the clash between the two figures. Talk shows dissected the situation, some framing it as another example of Trump being unable to connect with younger generations, others portraying it as a deeper cultural struggle between faith and modern secularism. The division was everywhere, growing larger with every passing hour. Memes spread like wildfire, each one taking the situation to new extremes. Some depicted Trump as an out-of-touch leader, desperately trying to reclaim relevance, while others painted Lil Nas X as a symbol of a society that had lost its way. The exchanges were relentless, with each side finding ways to escalate the rhetoric. Every comment, every post, every tweet became a weapon in the ongoing war of words. And yet, underneath the chaos, something else was brewing. The more the controversy raged on, the more the focus began to shift. What had started as an attack on Trump's speech was beginning to turn into something else entirely. As the world watched, waiting to see how the story would unfold, an unexpected development was about to change everything. The battle between Donald Trump and Lil Nas X had reached its peak. The media was locked in an endless cycle of analysis. Debates raged across social media, and the divide between supporters and critics had never been more pronounced. Trump had positioned himself as the unshakable leader, a man standing firm in his faith despite the relentless mockery of the entertainment industry. Lil Nas X, on the other hand, had thrived on the controversy, fueling his persona as an untouchable provocateur who could dismantle even the most powerful figures. With nothing more than a well-timed post, the world watched, waiting for the next move, but no one could have anticipated what was about to happen. Just as the controversy seemed destined to follow the predictable path of endless arguments and fading media interest, something happened that no one could explain. It was not a carefully crafted press release, nor was it a strategic campaign maneuver. It was something that transcended the world of politics and entertainment, something that would turn skeptics into believers and force even the most hardened critics to pause. It began as whispers, unverified reports surfacing online, stories that seemed too incredible to be true. People started recounting strange coincidences, unexplained events, moments that defied logic. A man in Texas claimed that after watching Trump's speech, he had a profound change of heart, walking away from a life of crime and dedicating himself to faith. A woman in New York shared a story of praying for the first time in years after hearing Trump's words, finding unexpected solace in a moment of personal crisis. These accounts were dismissed at first as isolated incidents, but then they started multiplying. Then came something even more extraordinary. Lil Nas X, the very person who had mocked Trump so publicly, posted something that stunned his own followers. It was cryptic at first, a short message hinting at an experience that had shaken him. He did not provide details, did not explain, but the tone was different from anything he had ever shared before. His fans were confused, some amused, others concerned. Then, rumors surfaced that he had privately reached out to someone from Trump's inner circle, not for a publicity stunt, not for another viral moment, but because something in him had shifted. The media scrambled to understand what was happening. Analysts speculated wildly, searching for meaning in a situation that defied their expectations. Some dismissed it as an act, an elaborate performance meant to keep attention on him. Others whispered that perhaps, just perhaps, something beyond politics was at play. But as the speculation grew, another revelation emerged. Trump, having caught wind of the rumors, had made a move that no one had expected. Instead of using this as an opportunity to boast, to claim victory, to mock his opponent in return, he extended something rare in the world of public feuds, an invitation. He did not attack, did not gloat, did not frame the moment as a conquest. Instead, he reached out with a message not of retribution but of reconciliation. It was something even his harshest critics could not have anticipated. The shift was undeniable. The conversation was no longer about a petty exchange between a politician and an entertainer. It had become something far greater. It had become a story of transformation, of reflection, of the unpredictable ways in which even the most unlikely figures could find themselves at the center of something far beyond their control. No one knew what would happen next. Would Lil Nas X fully acknowledge what had taken place? Would Trump continue down this unexpected path of unity? Would this be remembered as just another moment in the never-ending cycle of internet controversy? Or would it become something lasting? What had started as a moment of mockery had turned into something else entirely. And the world, once divided between laughter and outrage, now found itself watching in silence, waiting to see what would come next. Donald Trump had never been a stranger to controversy. Every battle he fought, every headline that bore his name, every attempt to dismantle his influence only seemed to solidify his place in history. This time was no different. What had begun as an orchestrated effort to mock and humiliate him had, against all odds, evolved into something far greater. The backlash he had initially faced had transformed into a testament to his resilience, his unwavering stance on faith, and his ability to shift the public narrative in his favor. He had not merely endured the storm, he had bent it to his will. Among his base, his status only grew stronger. His supporters, who had watched him stand firm in the face of relentless criticism for years, saw this moment as another confirmation that he was unlike any other political figure. While most would have retreated, lashed out in anger, or played into the hands of their detractors, Trump had done the opposite. He had turned the conversation toward faith, framed himself as a leader fighting against a culture that sought to erase religious values from public life, and positioned himself as a symbol of perseverance. This was not just a political victory, it was a spiritual one, at least in the eyes of those who believed in him. For many, the event only reinforced their trust in him, strengthening the idea that he was a man who would not waver, no matter how fierce the opposition. His ability to turn criticism into an advantage, to reframe attacks as proof of his righteousness, had once again propelled him forward. The media, once confident that this feud would diminish his influence, now found themselves watching as he absorbed the energy of the controversy and used it to build an even more dedicated following. But the impact of this moment was not limited to Trump alone. Lil Nas X, the artist who had built his career on controversy, found himself in unfamiliar territory. While his initial response had been celebrated by his core audience, the unexpected turn of events left many confused. He had been the instigator, the provocateur, the one who had always controlled the tone of the conversation. And yet somehow, this time, the energy had shifted. The power he had held over the narrative seemed to slip from his grasp. His silence following the unexpected developments only fueled speculation. His fans, accustomed to his usual confidence and defiant attitude, began to question why he had not continued the attack. He had mocked countless figures before. Why was this different? Why had he not doubled down? Some assumed it was a strategic retreat, a calculated decision to avoid further entanglement in a conversation that was taking an unexpected turn. Others speculated that something had genuinely shaken him, that perhaps the experience had not unfolded in the way he had anticipated. The media, once eager to champion his response, now struggled to frame his role in the unfolding story. Was he still the rebellious icon who had exposed Trump as a relic of the past? Or had he inadvertently set the stage for one of Trump's most unexpected victories? His critics began dissecting the situation, some suggesting that he had miscalculated, that he had chosen the wrong target at the wrong time. While his existing fanbase remained loyal, the controversy introduced a new element into his public image: uncertainty. He had built his brand on confidence, on the idea that he was untouchable, that no one could challenge him without facing his sharp wit and irreverence. But this time, something had been different. The reaction had not gone as expected. The attention he had sought had taken a turn he had not foreseen, and instead of standing as the clear victor, he found himself at the center of speculation about what exactly had transpired. For both Trump and Lil Nas X, the effects of this moment would linger. Trump had emerged from yet another battle not only unscathed, but stronger. His image as an unwavering figure reinforced by the way he had handled the situation. Lil Nas X, on the other hand, had faced a rare moment of unpredictability, a situation that had not played out according to the script he had mastered so well. The world had watched this unexpected clash unfold, and while the dust was beginning to settle, one truth remained. This was not just another fleeting controversy. This was a moment that had reshaped the perception of both figures, a moment that neither of them could simply walk away from without it leaving a lasting mark on their careers. Donald Trump's journey is filled with resilience, bold decisions, and unforgettable moments. Stay inspired, like this video, drop a comment below, and subscribe to be part of this movement. Donald Trump had always been a polarizing figure, but this particular moment transcended the usual political spectacle. What had started as an exchange between a former president and a provocative artist had grown into something much larger, something that touched on the deepest cultural divides of modern society. It was no longer just about a social media feud or a clash of personalities. This episode had evolved into a powerful reflection of the battle between tradition and progressivism, faith and secularism, authority and rebellion. At its core, it revealed the ever-growing struggle over the role of religion in public life, the impact of pop culture on political discourse, and the way in which narratives are shaped in an era dominated by media influence. For decades, faith had played an integral role in shaping the identity of America. It had guided policies, influenced elections, and remained a cornerstone of national values. But as the cultural landscape shifted, as entertainment industries pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable, as social movements challenged long-held beliefs, faith found itself increasingly on the defensive. It was no longer universally respected or shielded from mockery. It had become, in many circles, a symbol of the past, something to be re-examined, challenged, even ridiculed. And Trump, regardless of the controversies surrounding him, had positioned himself as a defender of that past, a champion for those who felt their beliefs were under siege. Lil Nas X, on the other hand, represented a different side of that cultural divide. He was an embodiment of modern pop culture, where defiance was celebrated, where controversy was currency, where traditional values were often met with skepticism or outright rejection. He had built his career by pushing limits, by confronting institutions that had long held influence over society. He had used satire, irreverence, and rebellion to carve out his space, and for many, he was not just an artist, he was a symbol of cultural transformation, of a world moving beyond the constraints of tradition. This clash, then, was not just about Trump and Lil Nas X. It was about something much deeper, something that had been brewing for years. It was about whether faith could still command respect in a world increasingly skeptical of religious authority. It was about whether pop culture had become too dominant, too dismissive of the principles that had once defined society. It was about the power of media to elevate or destroy, to shape perception, to dictate who would emerge victorious in the battle for public influence. But beyond the division, beyond the firestorm of arguments and media frenzy, this moment also revealed something else, a truth that neither side had anticipated. It showed that no one, no matter how famous or powerful, could fully control the outcome of a cultural moment. It showed that narratives could shift in unexpected ways, that even the most confident provocateurs could find themselves facing something greater than they had imagined. It showed that faith, no matter how often it was mocked or dismissed, still had the ability to stir something deep within people, to inspire, to challenge, to change. For Trump, the lesson was clear. His base was not just political, it was deeply rooted in something far more significant. His ability to speak about faith was not just a strategy, it was a connection to millions who saw him as their last line of defense against a world they believed was moving in the wrong direction. For Lil Nas X, the lesson was more ambiguous. Had he truly miscalculated, or had he simply found himself caught in a moment that was larger than his usual brand of rebellion? Had he inadvertently reignited a conversation he had not expected to be part of? And for the world watching, the lesson was perhaps the most profound. It was a reminder that no matter how much society evolved, no matter how dominant pop culture became, no matter how powerful media narratives were, there were forces, faith, belief, conviction that could not be erased. The debate over religion in public life, over the role of faith in shaping culture, over the influence of media and entertainment in defining values was far from over. This was not the end of that conversation. It was merely another chapter in a battle that had been fought for centuries and would continue long after the headlines had faded. Every great leader leaves a legacy. Be part of the conversation. Smash that like button, share your opinion in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful Trump insights. Donald Trump had once again stepped into the storm, faced the fire, and emerged not weakened but emboldened. What had begun as an attempt to ridicule him had turned into something far greater than anyone had anticipated. The controversy had not consumed him. It had amplified his presence, reinforcing the deep divide between those who saw him as a relic of the past and those who believed he was the last defender of values under siege. The clash between Trump and Lil Nas X was never just about a single exchange. It was about something much deeper, something that had been simmering beneath the surface of society for years. It was about the struggle between faith and modern culture, between traditional values and the ever-shifting tides of media influence. Trump had positioned himself as a man of conviction, someone who would not retreat, who would not dilute his message to satisfy critics. His response had not been reactionary, it had been strategic. Instead of engaging in the expected back and forth, he had elevated the moment into something more meaningful, framing it as a battle for the soul of the nation. He had spoken not just to his supporters, but to every person who had ever felt ridiculed for their faith, to every individual who had watched the growing hostility toward religion and wondered if there was anyone left who would stand against it. And in doing so, he had taken control of the narrative, turning what should have been a moment of mockery into a testament to his resilience. Lil Nas X, on the other hand, had entered the battle with confidence, using the tools that had always served him well: humor, irony, and irreverence. And yet for the first time, the script had not played out as expected. The usual cycle of controversy had taken an unexpected detour, and instead of delivering a definitive victory, the moment had left questions lingering in the air. His silence after the unexpected turn of events spoke louder than any tweet or performance ever could. Had he miscalculated? Had he encountered something he did not fully anticipate? Or was there something deeper at play, something that even he was beginning to reflect on? And now the question remains, who truly won this battle? Was Trump humiliated, Or did he turn the moment into one of his most unexpected victories? Did Lil Nas X reinforce his status as a fearless cultural icon, or did he stumble upon a force greater than he imagined? The story is not just about two public figures clashing. It is about the cultural war that continues to define our era. It is about the power of belief, the shifting nature of influence, and the unpredictable ways in which moments of conflict can evolve into something far beyond anyone's control. Now, it is time for you to decide. What do you think? Was this a moment of humiliation or triumph? Was it just another fleeting controversy, or was it a sign of something larger happening beneath the surface? Leave your thoughts in the comments and let your voice be heard. And if you want to see more stories about the unexpected twists in Trump's journey, make sure to watch the next video. We guarantee you won't want to miss what happens next. Strength, strategy, and vision. If these qualities inspire you, you're in the right place. Show your support by liking this video, commenting your thoughts, and subscribing for more.